down in beautiful Austin, Texas to play some high-stakes poker on the Lodge livestream. I love getting invited out to play as the action is always top-notch. You're not going to want to miss these crazy hands, especially when I flop middle set in a 5-bet pot with pocket queens and get it all in versus one of the biggest action players in all of Texas. I settle into seat number 5 at the livestream table and immediately look down at a7, end up winning this hand on the river with just a pair of 7s, surprisingly, while I'm putting in my kava order, barely paying attention to the table.
For the entirety of that hand, Wolfgang was putting in an order for lunch.
Our next playable hand is Jack-7 of clubs from the cutoff. The 9 of spades peels off on the turn. Bang, we turn the straight. Try to go for some small value versus Randy, but unfortunately he finds the fold. But then in the next hand, I find myself in an amazing squeeze spot.
Wolfgang's got 2 10s. This is about as good of a squeeze spot you could ever ask for.
There's a raise to 150 from Cinnabon. It looks like the entire table wants to come along. You gotta go large because it definitely looks like a squeeze. Anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 is probably fine. And once you get that initial raiser to fold like we do here, you're most likely gonna take down the hand uncontested. That'd be $800 worth of profit. But look at that, Big Tony shoves it all in for $2,060 after I quickly just verify he doesn't have like 10K behind, put in the snap call, and we're off to a run out.
Running it one time, Max Payne, an ace or a couple of clubs. How about an ace and a 4 for Big Tony?
Yikes, that's not exactly what we wanted to see. The turn comes the King of Hearts though, giving me an additional like 8 or 9 outs. The river card though is a Black Queen, and Big Tony gonna take down that nearly $5,000 pot with the call and then the shove all in. Nice hand, Tony. It's a match the stack game here at the Lodge, so I immediately go into my bag and pull out a few more chips. We find ourselves in another great spot here from the hijack with the ladies, and I come in for a 3-bet to $325. I also should note we are playing the nit game, which means if you're the last person to win a hand, you're gonna owe everyone $100, and considering there's 7 other players at the table, would not be a good spot to be in. Cinnabon puts in the call here with a mystery hand on the button. My buddy Randy, aka 3Coin, comes in for a 4-bet to $700. It's a very small 4-bet, so when the action's back over to me, alarm bells are going off in my head. However, with the nit game on and Cinnabon in there as well, don't just want to call here with the queens, I want to put in a 5-bet. Those are going to look super strong, so I don't need to go large. I decided to go $1,700. You can see Cinnabon folds king, queen suited. There's one of our queens in the muck. Hopefully we won't need one. Action's back over to Randy. Randy decides he wants to see 3 cards, puts in the additional $1,000, and off to a flop we go.
Wolfgang already with a pair. How about oh my gosh.
Yeah, you can say that's an action board, and Randy immediately rips it all in. Kind of a strange line. Hopefully he has like king 10 or pocket 10s. I don't really think he's gonna have kings. Probably just rips it in pre, so I snap call him, and we are up against the goods. How did I find myself in a super cooler with middle set here? We're going once in this 10.9K pot. The turn and river are both no bueno for Wolfgang, and Randy is taking down this massive pot with his flop flush in a 5-bet pot, ace 4 of diamonds. I love Randy, man. The action is great. Shout out to 3Coin, taking down a massive one. Even though I love Randy, that one hurts. I'm down 7.1K, and immediately I ask, what is the biggest stack at the table? I'm gonna match it. I go into my bag and pull out $11,000. We're in for $18,000 total now. I have nearly 11K in my stack. And what's that? We look down at the ladies once again. Are they gonna betray me for a second time? Well, we're about to find out. I'm on the button as well. There's a raise from Big Tony, and High puts in the call from the cutoff. I want to go large here, somewhere around $400 to $500, and that's what I decide to do. Tony's out of the way, he was just jacking off, and High puts in the call out of position. Gonna be in a tough spot. 9-8-4 with 2 spades seems pretty great for me. High checks, I go for a $400 down bet, and High now check raises me to $1,000, a little 2.5x. Raises usually mean they have a good hand, but a player like High is probably balanced between bluffs and made hands. He could still have 10-7, 7-6, 10-jack, or any 2 spades, so of course I have to put in the call in position with my ladies. I also have the queen of spades in my hand. I could back into some fun possibilities, but the deuce of hearts on the turn doesn't give me any additional outs. Into the 3K pot comes a $1,500 bet from High. The gears are turning in my head a little bit here. If I just call, there'll be 6K in the middle. He'll have around 4.4K behind. And if there's no spade, he might just give up on some bluffs. I think I want to get the money all in right now. The only downside to that is he's snapping me off with 9s and 8s. However, on most rivers, I'm just going to call off a shove anyways and pay him off. So I think the best play is to go all in here and get the most versus any of his draws. For instance, if he has a hand like ace-10 of spades, he might just shut down on the river if he bricks, but getting in here, he probably can't find the fold.
Wolfgang, raised on the turn, wants to get all the money from high. You don't blame him.
When I rip it in, we are not snap called, which means no 9s, no 8s, no 4s, and no 9-8 suited. So that's pretty great for us. He ends up going into the tank and then eventually finds the call. So just like that, we are playing a $15,000 pot, and I need this one. If I lose this, we are going to be stuck $15,000. If I win this, we're just about unstuck on the session, which would be pretty crazy considering we're like 0 for 2 in the massive pots tonight. We're gonna run it 2 times after seeing his hand Queen 9 of hearts. 2 boards, dealer. Each one of them is worth $7,500. We lock up the first one, a pretty clean deuce of spades, and the 8 of diamonds on the next river. Hand number 48 is a beauty, and my sweater really should say pray for chips. Let's go. Just like that, I'm only stuck $145 on the session, and I'm feeling pretty good until Chaz leaves me hanging, doesn't dap me up. I have to dap myself up. I mean, what are these people doing down here in Austin? Not even being friendly to their guests, but no worries. We got 2 mudkips on my stack, and I'm gonna get after it here in hand number 52 with 10-7 offsuit, a beautiful hand from the straddle, and I decide to put in the call. Chaz comes in as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop, which comes 9-8 deuce with 2 hearts. The action checks through, giving me a pair and an open-ended straight draw on the 7 of hearts turn, and now Big Tony fires out small. Of course, I'm going nowhere. Chaz doesn't like this board. He also doesn't like wearing t-shirts underneath his hoodies, and he folds his cards. Off to a river we go, which comes the 6 of diamonds, bang, giving us the straight. Tony fires out for 350, and I think a call is definitely in order. However, if we think about it for about 10 seconds here, he can still call us with some 2 pairs, a worse straight being any 5, and then maybe some sets as well. So I like going for a raise instead of just calling.
Okay, probably just mulling over. If you can get value from a lower straight. If you're gonna raise, I don't think you can go larger than something like 800, 900. There it is, Wolfgang agrees.
You want to go small though because there are 3 hearts out there, so I click it back to $700, which the announcer loves, and we're going to take down a $1,600 pot. Hand number 57 starts with high, making it 150. I 3-bet him to 400. Not exactly sure why I went 400 instead of 450, but Randy gets in there, Big Tony calls, and high does as well. We're going 4 ways to the flop, which comes queen, 10, 3. Let's go. Top pair, top kicker, as Jamie Gold would say. The action checks over to myself. In multi-way pots, a large bet looks pretty strong, so I like somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to $600. I somehow size up here to 800, which I think is a mistake. It's just gonna get called by better hands, queen 10, pocket 3s, pocket 10s, and then hands like queen 7 and queen 8 are gonna call once and then probably give up on a lot of turns. So yeah, we can see exactly that happens. Everyone folds. Randy thought about it for a second there. Maybe if I would have went 400 or 500, he calls with his overcard and backdoor nut flush draw, but we don't have time to blab on in this one. I look down at the Robbie, jack 4 off from the straddle. I put in a call. We're going multi-way here to a king 10-9 board. When the action checks through and the king of clubs comes on the turn, the nit game's on there, so I'm gonna take a stab. Gotta give action to get it, and everyone folds, so of course I get to show the Robbie, take down the nit game, and I don't owe any extra money. It's pretty rare that the action folds around to the straddles, but in hand number 91, that's exactly what happens. I put out the $100 straddle, Chaz puts out the 200, and the action folds around to me. Before we look at our cards, we decide to run it for $1,000 a person. Yes, we're gonna play a 2K pot here blind. We decide to show 1 card. I turn over the 10 of diamonds, and Chaz turns over an 8, so already a great spot for me. Chaz ends up flipping over both cards, so I see 8-7 offsuit. I'm only exposed to the 10 of diamonds, and we're gonna run out 5 cards.
Wolfgang does not have the other 8 showing.
But if he doesn't, if 10 high ends up being good, then Chaz will want to kill him. Sick.
Good.
That's a little interesting, a little spicy.
Oh, wow.
And 10 high. 10 high
Oh,
is best.
After winning that 2K flip, we're up to $19,500. Remember, I'm only in for 18K, so finally I'm making some money here in Austin. We have a pretty boring hand where we make top pair and get a little bit of value, and then follow that one up with king queen offsuit from the cutoff. I end up playing it weird by betting flop, checking turn, and then betting large on the river, getting called by Cinnabon's sixes.
Pays off Wolfgang. Nice check on the turn. Probably got him an additional bet.
That brings us into the last interesting spot of the night. There's a raise to 250 from Big Tony. High puts in the call from a straddle, and I decide to call from the $50 straddle with king 9 of hearts. Not knowing the other player's hands, I think it's probably wise to just call here. You could come in for a 3-bet, make it around 1,000 or 1,200, but king 9 suited is probably good when you flop the flush and some 2 pairs, coolering hands like ace king and king queen. So I decide just to put in the call, and we are going to go 3 ways to the flop. Flop comes king, king, deuce, bang, we flop 3 of a kind. Big Tony slows down and checks, and high checks it over to myself as well. I think this spot is pretty straightforward. Now you might be thinking, oh, it's probably just a slam dunk bet, but here's my logic for checking. I actually like checking because you're either way ahead or way behind. For instance, if Tony has aces or queens, you're probably not getting 3 streets of value, meaning betting flop, turn, and river. However, if Big Tony has a better king than me, like ace king, king queen, king jack, we are in a world of hurt, and I don't want to bloat the pot unnecessarily. That being said, I don't think high in the middle here ever has a better hand than myself. I check behind, and the turn comes the 8 of spades. When Tony checks for a second time, now we can narrow his hands down to air, or definitely not a king. High now takes up the betting lead and fires out for $400, and once again, I think our decision is pretty straightforward. We just have an easy call. If we raise, it primarily looks like a king or pocket 8s. However, if we just call, it allows high to continue bluffing on the river, and who knows, we might also be able to pick up Big Tony for $400. Nah, he's too wise, he folds his cards, and heads up to the river we go, which comes the 4 of hearts. It's a total brick, and high now bets nearly the size of the pot, $1,400 into the $1,600 pot. Immediately, I want to raise. However, if we think about it, if I go for a raise, what is he calling me with here? All of his bluffs give up, right? Like his ace 10 of spades and all that good stuff. That would just fold. I'm getting called by pocket 8s. I'm getting called by all of his kings. I think that's about it. If we think about all of his kings, sure, he could have a hand like king 7, king 6, king 5, but everything else we lose to, ace king, king 8, king 10, king jack. I don't think it's likely he has king queen and ace king because he just called preflop instead of 3-betting Big Tony. However, we're losing to a bunch of hands and just not getting called by better, so I make a pretty disciplined just call. I'm gonna look like a dingus if he turns over king 7, king 6, or king 5. However, that is not the case. We're in a cooler situation. High somehow has ace king offsuit, did not 3-bet himself, played it tricky, but I can't say he made the maximum in this one because if he bets the flop, he would have made more money. If he checks either the turn or the river, he could have gone for a check raise and got more money in. Still a $4,400 pot going his way, which is nice, but I'm pretty stoked that I only lost that much. It's unfortunate we ended the live stream with that cooler, bringing me to a minus 130 on the session, a little bit more than that 35 they've documented because of some tips. However, if we look back, I was stuck $7,000 early on, so I'm pretty happy with how I played, kept it together, didn't punt, and got it all back. If you guys want to see other videos from the lodge, they'll be up on your screen right now. Click that like and subscribe button to help out the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. As always, peace!